So for section 9.2, we're going to look at a new construction called the hyperbola, where you can think of the hyperbola in terms of sort of general geometry in a couple different ways. You can think of it as being something like if we took an elliptical shape as before and split its pieces out so they're facing opposite ways. You cut it in half and split it along that major axis. You can also think of it in terms of being something like a parabola either facing horizontally or vertically, designating a point below it or outside of it, and then making a copy of it reflected on the other side. So it's like a pair of parabolas. But more specifically, if you want to get the textbook definition of a hyperbola, what we're looking at there is the shape in the plane generated by looking at two fixed points that we call the foci as before, but here, instead of talking about the sum of distances here, we want the difference of distances to be a constant value, where for this, and really the entirety of our stuff with conic sections, at the very least the first two of them, there's some more I can talk about with the parabolas we'll see in 9.3, but these things, it's a bit outdated to be focused on the details we're going to focus on here. We'll get through them. I'm not that passionate about them, so I'm not going to put as much weight on this in terms of exams. But it's worth seeing this stuff now because for those of you who really are going to go far with math, I mean even farther than the stuff I talk about with complex numbers, there are some interesting and deep relationships you can talk about with behaviors that happen to be elliptical and hyperbolic that we're only going to see the very, very, very surface of. We're going nowhere near the depth that this stuff gets to, but it's worth seeing some of this at the very least now so you can get a better sense of the shape. And speaking of getting a better sense of the shape, the next thing we're going to see is, as before, a more exacting set of definitions for how a hyperbola looks in terms of an equation.